David Cameron caught between the crosshairs after slamming Boris over media in recent interview. David Cameron appeared to slam Boris Johnson for not talking enough to the media and the general tendency to turn a blind eye to costly blunders, a privilege mortals don't have, in a recent interview. David Cameron was left red in the face after presenter Adam Boulton recalled that he regularly evaded press conferences and turned down innumerable interview requests during his 6-year-long stint as Prime Minister. Mr. Cameron appeared to take aim at Mr. Johnson, alluding to his inaccessibility when it comes to conducting interviews with the media. But Mr. Boulton was quick to point out that he wasn't the biggest admirer of the media himself during his 2,255 days in power at number 10 in Downing Street. Mr. Cameron was Britain's Prime Minister between May 2010 and June 2016 and stepped down after the UK voted to leave the EU and was subsequently replaced by Theresa May. And he didn't exactly wax lyrical about Mr. Johnson, hinting that he can get away with literally anything he wants and suggesting that he deliberately recruited professional photographers so that he can bypass the media. In an interview for his new documentary Feral Beasts, he called out Mr. Johnson for ignoring Britain's most popular outlets and boasted of his availability to the media back in the day, although he acknowledged that that did not happen very often. He said, "Boris has always been able to get away with things that mere mortals can't seem to. But look, I think you shouldn't do this to bypass the media. Whether it's press conferences, interviews or media, this is important. And I always did. Yes, the press conferences were rather infrequent, but I never held back from going on the Today programme and coming on your show. We were always available and keen to engage and answer questions." Having been a Prime Minister himself, Mr. Cameron is well placed to understand the intricate nature of the job and to know that Mr. Johnson is snowed under with work, with little time available to do interviews on a regular basis. But he urged Mr. Johnson, whom many describe as enigmatic, to at least take his time to talk to the country's most powerful outlets. He said, "Not every day, because he's got a country to run." Mr. Cameron reminded listeners that Mr. Johnson has his own photographers in place to escape the media, although he himself attempted to hire photographer David Parsons in 2010 before a political outcry obliged to perform a U-turn. Mr. Cameron also said he never sought to avoid important interviews and was always available to the media during his time in Downing Street, in another apparent dig at Mr. Johnson. The pair first met at Eton College before attending Oxford University, where they both became members of the Bullingdon Club, an exclusive male-only dining club known for its lavish banquets. They also both became Conservative MPs in 2001, Mr. Johnson for Henley and Mr. Cameron for Witney, before the latter became Tory leader. A brewing rivalry came to the fore, though, when Mr. Johnson backed Vote Leave in the 2016 Brexit referendum, resulting in Mr. Cameron's resignation as Prime Minister. The former leader was speaking to Adam Boulton for Feral Beasts, a new documentary exploring how Britain's relationship with the media has changed. And Mr. Cameron said Mr. Johnson may have hired his own team of professional photographers in an attempt to bypass the media. He added, "Well, Boris has always been able to get away with things that mere mortals can't seem to. But, look, I think you shouldn't do this to bypass the media. You go on having. Whether it is press conferences or interviews or media events, this is important. And I always did. Yes, the press conferences were rather infrequent, but I never held back from going on the Today programme and coming on your show. I mean, we were always available and keen to engage and to answer questions." Mr. Cameron added, "The media in that way has an incredibly important role." When the UK left the EU at the beginning of last year, Mr. Johnson's team recorded a 3-minute address to the nation, as opposed to following the tradition of having speeches covered by an independent broadcaster. Speeches covered